Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Disney and Pixar's Lightyear, to infinity and beyond. Nate Shelton, mission log, stardate 0613. After seeing Lightyear in IMAX, our full spoiler-free review is a go. As always, I want to thank our own Star Command and our friends at Disney Studios Canada for giving us the opportunity to see this movie early for review. Welcome in, everybody. Before we get started, if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Now, of course, I could not explore this sector of the Gamma Quadrant alone. I need my fellow Space Ranger, Lieutenant Justin Lawrence. Welcome in. How you doing, bud?
Hello, Ranger. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm a little upset that Star Command is not responding. I don't understand what's going on there.
Oh, classic Star Command. Always ignoring their post.
Right? It's just like, what is even the deal? Why do I even make these mission logs in the first place?
Yeah, no one's listening to them, man.
Apparently. Listen, if you are listening, we'll tell you how you can reach us later on in the
Please
podcast.
Let us know.
But we're I'm personally, as you can probably tell, listening to this, I'm a little under the weather, but I am still feeling pretty amped and pretty happy with what we saw in this movie. And what we got to do after seeing the movie, before we blast into this review, I want to remind everyone listening that our interviews with director Angus MacLane and producer Galen Sussman, as well as composer Michael Giacchino, are up now on podcast services and on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. So definitely go check those out. I think, we had a blast doing them. It was so incredible to get to chat with these incredible people who crafted this movie, I think. Is fair to say?
Absolutely. I think that they 100% are the crafters of the movie. There's so many different facets that go into a movie like this, but when you think of head of departments and the heads that are kind of leading the charge to make sure that the best possible product is on the screen, these three are definitely huge parts of that craft. And we learned so much from those interviews, and we learned so much from the press conference, yet I still would love to talk to a cinematographer about some of the absolutely stunning visuals, an absolute highlight. So there's just so much love that went into this movie, and you can feel it right on the screen. So, and
we'll definitely get into all of that. But first, a little bit about the movie itself. Description is a sci-fi action adventure and the definitive origin story of Buzz Lightyear, the hero who inspired the toy. Lightyear follows the legendary Space Ranger on an intergalactic adventure alongside a group of ambitious recruits and his robot companion, Socks. Lightyear stars Chris Evans, Keke Palmer, Peter Son, Uzo Aduba, James Brolin, Mary McDonald-Lewis, Efren Ramirez, and Isaiah Whitlock Jr., and is directed by Angus MacLane and produced by Galen Sussman, and is in theaters and in IMAX this Friday, June 17th. So, Justin, let's get right to this. I think one of the takeaways, we had the opportunity to attend a couple of press conferences about this movie, and one of the takeaways I got from Angus MacLane was really it felt like their North Star was to make sure this movie was fun. And I think I can attest with multiple giant ear-to-ear smiles during this movie. They nailed that. This movie was fun.
100%. Yeah, and it feels like what it is very much pitched as, a sci-fi action-adventure movie with the character of Buzz Lightyear at the center of it. It totally knows what it wants to be. We talk about movies dripping with confidence, and this definitely has the confidence of knowing that it is a sci-fi movie that is to sort of elevate the existing character that we know and love of Buzz Lightyear to action superstar, right? It very much is meant to define the toy.
But I think, I didn't quite get that from the marketing initially. I felt like, going into the movie, I didn't really know what to fully expect out of beyond the fact that, yes, this is about the man behind the toy or whatever. But the opening text for this movie, it starts off with some really wonderful opening text. I love that this movie was it just really was the movie that Andy watched in 1995. I think it's such a smart way to instantly set us up for the story that we got, and it immediately kind of just sort of, I think, puts you into that world to almost make you feel like, oh, so now, us watching all of this, we're literally watching a movie that was from Andy's world. It's super cool.
Yeah, it sets up the parameters, if you will, of how to look at this movie and understand it, right? Because I think even in the press conference, they were having a little bit of a debate back and forth if this movie was live action in the Toy Story world or if it was animated as we see it here in the real world. And they came to the conclusion in the press conference that it would be live action, that in the Toy Story world, this Lightyear movie would have been a live action movie, but then they would then be 3D
in the
live action
in the movie, because they made
they're actually they made the movie, so they've just canonized themselves into the Toy Story universe. It's a very interesting concept of and it's kind of gives you a bit of time displacement. But that being said, it's clear that, they knew what they wanted to do with this movie from a visual standpoint and a narrative standpoint, and they achieved it. And very much like you said, you're smiling throughout this movie. It's pure enjoyment from start to finish.
Well, and kind of going off of that, I gotta say, as far as, again, and we keep talking about IMAX, and I honestly, Pixar cannot be stopped on this trajectory of giving us movies that look better and better and better. And they've always been pioneers of the industry, but I honestly don't feel like it's hyperbole to say that this movie, with what it's doing and the way it's shot and the way it's made for IMAX, and yes, I said the way it's shot, I know it's an animated movie, it's stunning, and it's nuts. And especially when we're, there's moments where we're flying through hyperspace or hyperspeed in this movie, and it goes full screen IMAX. And to me, it felt like I was on a ride at Disney, like having recently just been to Disney. Like, it felt like Soarin', or it felt like Smuggler's Run. Like, it was thrilling to be in this theater for so many moments, flying through space with Buzz. It was fantastic.
Absolutely. I think the IMAX experience really does embrace to infinity and beyond, because this technology is it elevates this entire movie to help imagine the scope of animated movies kind of on the same level as IMAX. Personally, I've only ever seen IMAX in live action, and I've never experienced it on this scale in animation. The fact that there was the attentiveness of wanting to shoot specific moments in IMAX, and how that fits narratively into the story. Like I mentioned in the interview, I said thank you for finding a way to blend between IMAX and non-IMAX footage, because sometimes that can be very jarring. And here, it's so masterfully done in the way that it's a part of the story, if you will. Obviously no spoilers, but there's a great moment where we see something fall from the sky, and that is the transition from non-IMAX to IMAX footage, and it just fills the screen immediately. So it feels intentional, it feels purposeful. It's not necessarily just a chunk or a small portion. It's large sections that suddenly you're just almost hugged in the footage, because IMAX has very much a curvature to it through width and height, but it's almost like it's hugging you in a lot of ways, these visuals, just to really, again, I know it sounds generic, to immerse you. Now, I wish I could have said that on my interview rather than what I rambled at the end there, but I was pretty frantic to close up there. Yeah.
But I mean, and I you mentioned it earlier in the review about the idea of talking to a cinematographer for this movie. I mean, again, we're talking about an animated movie, but this is very much the way that the movie was made, in the sense of the footage that they got in a way, the bouquet, the blocking, the way that they just sort of got the movie to look so incredibly realistic while still having that Pixar charm and that Pixar look to it. I think it's just so much fun, and it's really cool, the fact that we're able to see Pixar go beyond into these different styles, and that this is just one of those styles. I'm so stoked to see what they do next with this
IMAX
technology.
next, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure, because this makes Pixar bigger, just on the grand scale and scope of what it's trying to achieve with its visuals. Again, it like you said, it elevated it beyond anything that we could have anticipated in terms of visuals.
I also wanted to call out, I got a chance to talk to one of my composing heroes, I would say, Michael Giacchino, and he was very clear during our interview that none of the original character themes or music by Randy Newman was actually brought over, even though I kind of thought it was.
Yeah, you did.
But he was also really happy, when I told him that it felt like the spirit of that original music was felt, and you totally can hear it. You've got the military drums, the strings, the big brass, and a lot of it sounding, similar to, especially like the intro to Buzz Lightyear. I watched the documentary, right? Yeah. And it sort of shows the first moments of seeing Buzz, and you definitely can hear it in this movie. It also had Star Wars moments in the score as well for a lot of the bigger moments, and then it has those light, sad, very soft Pixar strings that come in the piano, and it's a really lovely score. Nice, I can't wait to hear more of it again, but it really did add quite a bit to the movie.
I feel like the music very much complemented what the movie was meant to do as well, in the capacity of have big booming actions, but also these heartfelt, sincere moments that do connect to the audience. And the music is obviously very much as you were kind of discussing with Michael, that it is so central to those emotions that we experience as humans. And I think that again in this film, that is so much felt from a narrative and visual standpoint right into music. So you get this beautiful mixture of all of it coming together to help ground this in what makes Pixar so special. And it's that heartfelt human connection that this movie has with wanting to humanize Buzz Lightyear.
I will say, though, for those who have listened to our podcast before and know about my previous history of crying while watching especially Pixar movies, I will say, no sobbing in this movie. I'm a little disappointed to say no sobbing, no crazy, tears flowing. But I did definitely, I got a little choked up. There was a moment where I got a little choked up, a little teary-eyed from a really sad moment in this movie, but no full-on tears like in previous Pixar movies. So I got to say, that was a little bit disappointing. I love to cry while I watch a Pixar movie. It's almost like an expectation for me at this point, but no, it definitely, you can still feel a lot of the emotions in this movie for sure. I also wanted to bring up, let's talk about Chris Evans. I think he, for the second he's on screen, the second he starts talking, he is Buzz Lightyear. He got the same, very much hitting the exact voice that made the idea of sort of a toy based on him with Tim Allen's voice like work. Like it's funny how going into this,
reverse engineered it probably.
Yeah, right. He kind of almost went the other way, and it's cool. The writing for his character is great. He's obviously a little more serious. He's a little smarter than the toy of Buzz Lightyear, because the toy of Buzz Lightyear really only knew what was on the back of his box. He didn't know anything beyond that.
For sure.
And so this is obviously, you can tell immediately, like, this guy's a professional, but he's also not without his flaws, and I think the movie does a really good job of highlighting that.
Absolutely. I think this entire movie is an exploration of those flaws, and that's the character study piece to Lightyear, is exploring that, and through the cast of characters that we meet. But sticking with Chris Evans right now, I think his performance was flawless, and in many ways his performance served as the subtle callbacks to the original Toy Story in the smallest ways, whether it be the way a line is delivered, the way he expresses, the way he emotes something in his line delivery. Those moments felt, as you described, the reversed engineered of Tim Allen's voice for this toy, right? He was defining who was the original voice that gave Tim that voice. So he probably tempered it down a little bit, but still had the right amount to know when he was going to hit, those expressions that inherently are Buzz Lightyear. So I think he did a great job of defining the character. He made it his own.
I also wanted to talk about the scene stealer, I think, of the movie,
Socks.
Peter Sohn. Peter Sohn, who's actually, believe it or not, directing the next Pixar movie, Elemental.
I believe it. Yeah,
I'm so stoked, and he totally stole the show as Socks. I think he's hilarious. I think the dry, like, sort of AI type humor, it actually kind of reminded me a little bit of Doug from Up at times, with just sort of sometimes a lot of stuff went over his head and it was very robotic. But he's more calculated, I think, than Doug is. He's quicker, he's sharper, he's much more useful than Doug is. I hate to say it, I love Doug, but I just think he's such a fun little character. He's chock full of surprises and I guarantee Disney is going to milk the crap out of this character, and rightly so.
If they're going to milk it, it better make sense. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, when I say milk it, I mostly mean for merchandise purposes. Like, I think there's going to be a million socks products in the next year. I think he's going to be a hot toy. I think he's going to be really, really, we're going to get the expensive robots, the 900 plushies, and I hope some socks. I think I've been calling for socks. I want some socks.
I wonder if there's an opportunity to tell more stories with his character.
Like shorts. I'm sure we'll get a short with him, 100%.
Yeah. I have an idea for it, but it's spoiler-esque, so I won't share.
Well, listen, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it offline, and then we'll call up Angus McLean, and because he's a friend now, so we'll get him back on the podcast and talk to him there.
Anyone who's been on the show is a friend, of course.
Of course, that's how it works. We also got a lot of wonderful character growth, I think, from Keke Palmer's character of Izzy. I think she was great. I think she challenged Buzz throughout the movie to think differently and to work together, and I think she was one of the standouts, I think, from our three supporting cast, for sure.
100%. I think for Buzz, she was the catalyst to understand how he needed to change. Given that Izzy, played by Keke Palmer, is so inexperienced and is a little bit rough around the edges, I think Buzz, and always wanting to be the leader and take charge, I think it's interesting. She very much sets up the dilemma for his character to have to overcome, and realize that these comrades are there to help him. Something that's very human that we can connect to. So fighting our fears, trusting those around us, being stronger together rather than apart. Like, those are all layered into this story. And I think really through Buzz and Izzy, you really do see that explored.
Totally. And I think we get a little bit of that from the rest of our supporting cast. But for me, I felt as though the other two characters of Mo Morrison, played by Taika Waititi, and Darby Steele, played by Dale Soules, I felt like they were a little bit underutilized, or just maybe not as memorable the way that they were written. I think, a lot of the laughs we got were from Socks, and then there was like a great running joke with Taika Waititi's character that I won't spoil, but is a lot of fun. But other than that, it just felt like I feel like, especially from Pixar, I expect with such a small cast like this for them to be very memorable, and for like all the characters to sort of feel just as fleshed out. And I get it, the movie's called Lightyear, but even with Izzy, like, we got a really dope character arc. I just, for a larger cast like in Toy Story 4, I think it's excusable that a lot of your, additional cast is sort of not there for a lot of the movie, or it's not that they're not there for a lot of the movie, but they're not utilized
integral.
As good as
they're
I
not
think
integral
they should
to
be.
the story.
Right. Correct.
I get what you're saying. I think that often is the dilemma with these sort of large world stories. Certain characters kind of get pushed to the sides while, the story stays focused on its core characters. And, while we do meet this sort of ragtag group, it never loses its focus that the story is on Buzz. I think for me, though, the problem really comes up, though, with I think it's some of the other elements outside of it, even the threat, that just kind of questioning some things. I think that's where it kind of fell short for me. Like, I don't think it ever lost its heart because it knew what it was trying to say about these characters. I don't think the threat itself was actually really flushed out as much as it could have been.
No, I completely get that, and I think, again, like, and it's interesting with Pixar, like, the bar is set so high for these stories that even if it dips a little bit, it can feel a little jarring at times, and I think that's definitely felt in the middle of the movie more than anything for me. I think it's a great classic sci-fi story. It's got some standout moments. There's a lot of homage to classic sci-fi movies, and as we said, the moral themes really come across like you'd expect in a Pixar movie. But I found that the plot gets a little muddled and especially repetitive in the middle of the movie, and then we sort of get this rush to the finish at the end, and that was the only thing that like I actually noticed. Like, normally I don't, especially with Pixar movies, it's like I don't notice it, but I did notice it here. I think I was willing to look past it just because of how much I was smiling, and again, the visuals and the nostalgic feeling. But I did feel like the sort of the middle section and then the very ending was a little just not as tight knit as I'm used to with Pixar. But I will say I still had such a blast. It was still so much fun. It's still a Toy Story. You know, if you're a Toy Story fan, you're still going to love it so much, and the consistent callbacks. And there's a hype moment that I won't spoil at the end of this movie that Justin and I were like about to stand up and start cheering when this moment happens, and you will too. So yes, really, really dope stuff. And keep in mind, just so you're aware, there are 3 after credit scenes in this movie. 2 of them I don't think are that integral, but definitely stick around for all 3 because there's 3 of them, and it also lets you appreciate all the wonderful people in the credits who made this movie. But Justin, let's get to our overall thoughts and rating for this review, which we're going to be doing on a scale of 1 to 5 personal companion robots. Justin, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we've been saying it as we've been going through our discussion, but this is Pixar's first sci-fi action adventure that really is meant to define the man behind the toy. While Tim Allen is forever Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story that we know and love, Chris Evans has defined this character with his own voice flawlessly. And as I was mentioning, in many ways, his performance feels like the subtle callbacks to the original Toy Story that feel meaningful to the audience to kind of get, rather than anything that's purposeful to the story, right? Because the story is about Buzz Lightyear, the Space Ranger. The entire cast of characters, as we were talking about, are fantastic. Some maybe underutilized than others. I really enjoyed how they all come together in the end to really show off their own strengths. And, Socks, as we were saying, absolutely adorable and the most honest companion robot. Well, I do have some issues with the narrative pacing and how things are justified, if you will. I think the action-adventure quality with the outstanding visuals, all held together by Pixar's ability to have a heartfelt story around overcoming fears, kind of living the moment in the moment. I think this is what really is going to make this movie a success, is that it doesn't lose its scope on what it is trying to say about Lightyear. Even though the things around it might not necessarily feel as justified or as explained. IMAX visuals for this movie, again, incredible, absolutely stunning. They will literally propel you to infinity and beyond. I know it's a cheesy thing, I'm going to say it, but honestly, I thought it was the best realization of how to put that term, that definitive term of what describes Lightyear into the movie beyond just, that's their thing that they do. The visuals really do transport you, and they are so stunning. So on that merit alone, given anything that I've had problems with, I'm giving this movie a 4.5 out of 5 personal companion robots, because it wrapped me in some starry skies and made me just kind of gasp. And then all while really caring about the character of Buzz Lightyear. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a win. That's a total success.
Absolutely.
So bravo. Yeah.
Yeah. This, again, I think although I was excited when I saw it announced back in 2020 at the Disney Investors Day conference, I as I said, I wasn't sure, what it was or how it would work. And this movie took a story that seemed like it wouldn't work and made an entire movie out of it. And it was delightful. It's fun. It's action packed. And as we keep saying, just go see it in IMAX. It's visually stunning. I don't understand how Pixar keeps elevating, and they're pioneers, as I said, in this industry. They are just continuously moving forward, making the stuff look better and better and better. And I can't wait to see what's next from them. And I think, you're going to feel like you're flying through space while watching this movie. It's just, as you said, it's so engrossing, and it really pulls you in. The music, again, as we said, elevates every single emotion felt throughout the movie, and it includes its own memorable themes while still feeling very Toy Story at the same time, or very Pixar as well. The plot is a great combination of other sci-fi movies and pays respects to them. Well, I still think it works as a movie centered around Buzz Lightyear at the same time. It doesn't sort of feel like cut and paste space movie. It really does still feel like a Buzz Lightyear adventure. And the voice cast, as we said, all of them are excellent. In terms of what I think Taika and Dale Soules had to work with, I don't think they got as much. They were saying during the press conference that they weren't really given any leeway to ad-lib. If you don't know, this movie was recorded. They recorded this separately, so they weren't ever in the same studio, to the point where Keke Palmer even mentioned on the red carpet that she had never met Chris Evans until that night. I can only imagine how difficult it is. When you watch the movie, you can't tell that they weren't next to each other. That's how good of voice actors they are. However, there's not that sort of, I think, riffing that one would expect from Taika Waititi or even Dale Soules' character of Darby. I think there could have been a little bit more of that. And I think the jokes, because of that, not all of them landed nearly as well as a lot of the surprise moments that we got with Socks. I think Socks is the standout of these side characters, and while it spins its wheels a little bit too much in the middle and isn't as tight as other stories we've gotten from the studio, I think Angus MacLane, Galen Sussman, and the team of Pixar have delivered a space epic that ultimately is just, again, a ton of fun. Go watch it in IMAX at least once. I'm going to go see it probably in IMAX again if I can at some point. Overall, this isn't my favorite Pixar movie, but it's Pixar. And so when it's Pixar, I mean, it's kind of like Star Wars and Marvel for us. We're not going to be too upset with whatever they make. So yes, even though I have a little bit of the problems with it, I was going to give this movie a 4, but the visuals and the IMAX experience brought it up to a 4.5 for me. And I think that definitely means you need to see it in IMAX. So 4.5 out of 5 personal companion robots. Well, that's it. We hope you enjoyed this review for Disney and Pixar's Lightyear. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on Lightyear, was it your favorite Pixar movie, just like it was Andy's favorite Pixar movie? Which brings up the question, Justin, do you think I guess that means Pixar is in Andy's world. Like Pixar is canon if they made this movie.
I'm think
so confused.
That's safe to say. Yeah, it's a head scratcher, man. It's a head scratcher.
Well, before we get any more confused, Justin, can you let our listeners know how they can reach us?
Of course. Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes, including the latest in movies, TV shows, and games, including our aforementioned interview with director Angus MacLane and producer Galen Sussman, as well as our interview with composer Michael Giacchino, up right now, again, both on podcast services and on YouTube. As well, we also have our interview with Miss Marvel directors Adil and Bilal, who direct episodes 1 and 6 of that show. So definitely check that one out as well. We have our spoiler-filled review for The Boys Season 3, episodes 1 to 3. And we currently have our watch clubs for both Miss Marvel and Obi-Wan well underway, with new episodes breaking down every moment, filled with speculation, dropping every Friday. And finally, we also have our This Week in Geek episodes every single Wednesday, where we bring you the latest news and trailer reactions, with our latest episode where Justin, Darcy, and I, we had the chance to sit down and we talked about all the wonderful things revealed at Star Wars Celebration, and we even discussed trailers that haven't even been released yet. So if you want to go and hear the details, the secrets, definitely go check that episode out. Go give those episodes a listen and a 5-star review if you don't mind. Lieutenant Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this review, and as we say, love ya.
Peace.
To infinity
and beyond.